We already talked about why Doom Patrol needs to be saved, so let's talk about why I think Titans might deserve more after Season 4, but might not. Now, I'm not the kind of person who's going to call anything trash. In fact, the words trash and garbage are probably my least favorite words when it comes to reviewing anything, comics, TV shows, or movies. That's because I think it's very one note, declaring the entire thing as awful when there's actual good things too. The only time I've ever trashed on anything with no positives was the Rawhide Kid series from 2003. And that's because how homophobic and insensitive it was. I even tried to be nice when it came to the 2003 Catwoman movie, even if I really didn't like it. So when I say I have a problem with Titans, I'm not calling it trash. In fact, this show has a lot of fans. And remembering how I felt when my favorite shows were canceled, I don't want the show's fans to be let down. Because I have a lot of friends who are fans of the show, and I genuinely just don't want people to feel sad. Because I know it does have fans, which is another reason why I dislike calling things trash, because I think by calling it trash is very dismissing the very idea other people might like it, even if you don't. For example, the She-Hulk show is getting trashed on so hard, but not just the show itself. I also have been watching a lot of people who have been defending the show, and now people are attacking them specifically and personally, which, in my opinion, I think is just ridiculous. Now, I think it's time to talk about my thoughts on the show. And you can, of course, disagree with me, because that's really fine. We all have our own opinions. Just don't personally attack me for mine, and I won't personally attack you for yours. I'm just kidding. If you personally attack me for mine, I'm not going to come back at you. I personally should say I personally don't care if you come at me. Don't come at anybody else. Like, that's just, I think, just mean and just kind of stupid. Like, why are you personally attacking people for their opinions on a television show? That's just ridiculous. Okay, now on to my personal thoughts on why I have problems with the show. Personally, I think this show has a very bad idea what these characters are meant to be like. Starfire, Nightwing, and Raven are meant to be heroes. Well, yes, Raven has had some morality debate in the comics. The Titans aren't meant to be anti-heroes. And while I can get behind the changes and adaptations, which we'll get into in a second, I just can't get past these changes. Watching disgrace and shoot thugs and snap their necks, or Batgirl Robin robbing a jewelry store. If I was Catwoman, I would call them out for being hypocrites. And Selena Kyle steals a lot of time to survive. Meanwhile, it's fine if these two rich white kids steal, but how dare Catwoman not want to starve? Maybe, and I mean maybe I can get past Starfire killing bad guys, but she violently assaulted those cops, and she had no remorse. While Batman Comics has, of course, fought cops before, he plays defense and usually feels bad about it. But Starfire was all about breaking bones and didn't even care. Meanwhile, Raven outright tortured Scarecrow, despite the fact he was already locked up in prison. It was not needed. He was already in Arkham. That was just overkill. And in my personal opinion, I think these characters just go way too far. I think is just very... It reminds me of how 90s comics wanted to be really edgy. And in my opinion, like I said, my opinion, you can of course disagree with it, they're trying way too hard to be edgy, and they're making these characters just be really brutal when, like, they're not meant to be. Robin isn't meant to be snapping people's necks. Starfire isn't meant to be, breaking police's bones. Beast Boy isn't meant to be eating people. Although I do think that one, at least, Beast Boy at least felt bad. And I thought Ryan Potter's performance played off really well that was a bad thing to do. So I was at least happy that they acknowledged that Beast Boy eating someone was a bad thing. But everything else, though, they just say, like, they have no remorse over what they do. Robin's okay with murdering people. Raven's okay with torturing people. Starfire's okay with assaulting police officers. It's just really weird that none of them seem to really care about their actions. And on to my next big issue, and that was the Red Hood arc on the show. And now, here's where I'm going to compare this adaptation of the story to another adaptation of the story. Batman Under the Red Hood was an anime movie based on the same comic book arc Season 3 of Titans is loosely based on, too. In the comics, Jason would be outsmarted by Joker by coming to a warehouse where his mother was being held, only be beaten with a crowbar and then exploded in a warehouse. Yes, fun fact, he didn't die to the crowbar in the comics. Despite the fact that everyone refers to him being beaten to death by a crowbar, he wasn't actually beaten to death by a crowbar, he was blown up. The comic book storyline about him coming back occurred after Superboy Prime smashed the walls of reality itself in Final Crisis. A whole Crisis event that has a very misleading name. This would bring back Jason Todd, but would later fully be resurrected as he was kind of an undead zombie for a while. He would completely be brought back to life by Talia al Ghul when she had him take a dip in the Lazarus Pit. Now to the animated movie. Now, the animated movie, in my opinion, is great. It's better than great, although it's very violent, and I watched it when I was 5, and it traumatized me for sure. I don't know why I was allowed to watch it when I was 5. Anyways, it's very different, as in very different from the comic book storyline. Superboy Prime is no longer involved whatsoever, and Talia al Ghul only cameoed. Instead, it was Ra's al Ghul who brought him back. This is because he felt guilty as he hired Joker to bring the chaos. But he didn't intend it to end with him taking Jason as a hostage and then killing him. And this time around, his mother's nowhere to be seen. Ra's al Ghul, this time around, also has and be dipped in the Lazarus Pit, which, in my opinion, is a much better idea than the whole wall smashing stuff. And it's interesting because you see this story work in a different form. Characters like Jason's mom, Talia al Ghul, and Superboy Prime are either given smaller roles or erased from the story altogether, and it still works, but also adds other characters like Nightwing, Black Mask, Amazo, and Ra's al Ghul. Although Nightwing was a part of the original arc, he had a much smaller role than he does in this movie. Now on to the show's version of the character and arc. Now the show's version of Jason Todd is far more aggressive than he ever was in the comics. That is, before he died. Well, he did, of course, kill someone in the comics where he died himself. On the show, he's perfectly fine with killing just really anybody. Even breaking cops' bones, stabbing them with his batarangs. He genuinely is just a reckless wreck. That's not hate, by the way. It's very interesting to see the build-up, and I think that, in my opinion, was definitely an improvement to see a more aggressive Jason Todd before he died. But we're about to get into the problem. Post his death on the show, he at first changes to be a far more villainous character, even killing Hank Hall, a former mentor of his. But as the season goes on, the more and more he just feels like nothing happened. Like there was no real mystery who the Red Hood was or what his plan was even about, as it wasn't even his plan. It was Scarecrow behind it all. Instead, he wasn't mysterious like he is in the comics or animated movie. Instead, he's just Jason. Even if I do think he started off well with killing Hawk, but as soon as Scarecrow is revealed to be the puppet master, he kind of just lost all his flair and became a lapdog. I will say his costume looks really cool, and I think the actor who plays him, I think Curran Walters, I think his name does a really good job at it. But, this is a big but, I just don't understand how he's really any different. After killing Hank, I think he generally just becomes his old self again, but just on a different side. In my opinion, he doesn't really seem all too different like he does in the comics. In the comics, there's a big transition of how it messes with his mind when he died. Here, it just really feels like nothing really happened. And while I can understand swapping Batman with the Titans, as this is a Titan show, I don't think having Joker being unseen was a very good choice. And then being killed, I think, just creates Red Hood's hate no longer valid, as Batman actually did kill Joker, something Jason was mad about how Bruce would never cross that line. But he did on the show, so he can't debate that he should have killed him, because he did kill him. But, like I said, it's all my personal issues with the show. But I do want to know, just, what do you think about the show? I do also want to say something positive. I think Ryan Potter's Beast Boy is great. And like other characters, he's not assaulting police officer or torturing people. I also think a lot of the actors are perfectly cast. I also really like Blackfire, as despite the fact she too is an anti-hero, it works with her because she's always been that way or a villain in the comics. So unlike all the heroes who are meant to be heroes that are being portrayed as anti-heroes, she actually is an anti-hero, so it works. And that's my opinions on Titans. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!